Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host tonight, ObjectivelyDan, and this is the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we talk to people about what they believe and why. And every single week, I always have a special guest. This week is no different. It is the skeptic, John, as we're going to call him, but the skeptic, if you've seen that floating circle on YouTube, you may not recognize the face right away, but I assure you they are one in the same. So John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I am excited too. I have to say, John, I talked to you about this a little bit before the show, but I have had so many conversations about you. Like, I've had a lot of people talk to me about, like, hey, have you heard of this skeptic guy? Like, hey, you know about this guy's content? Like, you seem to just kind of blow up this last year. So I was really happy when we contacted you and you agreed to be on the show. Looking forward to this one. Honestly,
yeah.
Really excited that you're here.
I'm a big fan of this show, and I love the whole call in and chatting to people and finding out why they believe what they believe. It's so fascinating to me, especially being a Brit in this country as well. You get a lot of strange things said to you.
Yeah, so this is something that's interesting. You just started. You've been on YouTube for a while, but you started the Skeptic channel fairly recently. It was last year.
Right.
You were talking about it, and or sometime last year too. You also moved to the United States
right.
for the first time. You've been living in England your whole life, so you've moved to the United States in a very interesting time, I gotta say. And you moved to Kentucky, of all places.
Yeah.
Which
I wanted
is
the
like,
deep end.
You wanted a big chunk of America. You were like, I'm gonna get the biggest bite possible, and you went straight for the jugular, dude. Like, you went straight to Kentucky, and honestly, I don't know how you do it. And I live in Texas, and it's like, this place is bad enough. I wouldn't trade it for Kentucky. Like,
really?
Honestly. I don't think so. I don't think so, man. I don't know.
I mean, I don't experience a lot of the bad stuff that you hear about, and maybe that's just small town life and the fact that I'm British, I get away with a lot. So maybe that's
what it is.
Yeah.
Americans have this thing where if somebody talks to you in a British accent, they have this natural assumption that you are smarter than them. Like, I think that's instinctual for a lot of people. So,
and I use that to my advantage. I know that I may sound smart. I'm not smart. But the fact that I sound smart, I can get away with a lot. So,
well, I don't know about that. But for those who aren't familiar with your channel, you do a lot of, you talk about a lot of different things. Of course, you talk about skepticism on your channel. You react to different videos that you see, and just talk about, like, I don't know, just skepticism in general, what that means, what that process is. So, like, what got you started into doing YouTube and stuff, and talk about this? Because, like, there's a lot of people that obviously do this kind of thing. I mean, I do this kind of thing, right? So what inspired you to get into it?
I actually had an old channel where I did a daily vlog back in the day. So I was a fan of YouTube anyway, but I quit that after a few years, and I tried to revamp that channel by learning about the algorithm, and nothing was working. So I said to my partner, she's now my wife, I want to try something new. I'm a big fan of the atheist experience. I watched Sven-MD with his flat earth content, and I wanted to kind of merge the two things. And I felt like I'd gone over the peak of the Dunning-Kruger effect, and I'd sort of reached the dip, and I felt far enough into that dip that I felt comfortable about talking about things without having to really know much.
But that's all YouTubers, though.
Yeah, right.
Like, I haven't met a single YouTuber that hasn't fell into the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah, right. And so I got to this bottom part and I was like, I need to start making content and I'm going to do it on this. And I sat and researched what I wanted to do. I actually did 3 flat earth videos, which fell flat, but I mixed it in with like religious claims. And I wrote 8 videos back in February last year. And then released them from March onwards for 8 weeks. And they started doing really well. And I had like 100 subscribers within a couple of weeks and I was loving life. And then towards the end of last year, it just started happening and I was getting lots of views. But I knew that I was eventually going to be moving to America as well because I'd met my wife on the internet. And so I knew I was coming here. And it's very easy to be a non-believer in the UK. And I'd heard rumors that it's not very easy to be a non-believer in this country. So I needed some kind of outlet as well. So sort of putting all of it together, I went, I'm going to make a channel on talking about what I find silly about certain claims. And so I like to think of my content as almost the first step on the ladder of non-belief. I don't know a lot of the big words. I don't know all the fallacious arguments, the names for them, but I do know what sounds silly to me. So I put out that content. And then maybe if someone's going, I might be a non-believer, I like what the skeptic's saying. If they want something more, they can go and find some other content creators that go deep into what they want. So yeah, I wanted to be that first step on the journey of non-belief.
I think that's so important though, because I say this a lot, like I think we treat atheism as this rejection or acceptance of certain propositions, whether we believe them to be true or not. Right. And it's like, just like we tend to have this very analytical conversation about it because we're so used to talking about this. But then you talk to the average person about this and they don't have the terms that we do. They don't have the like it's just not common for most people's experience. Like most people, when they talk about this, it's pretty average conversation. It's what you see on fucking Joe Rogan and stuff, right? Like Joe Rogan to me represents what the average American conversation is like about most topics, for better or worse, right? And it's like I appreciate the accessibility there. Someone who also is, I mean, mostly a non-expert, right? Like everything that I talk about on here is because I either read a book about it or I read something online. Like that's pretty much the extent of it, you know? So, fuck it. Why not? Like, I do appreciate that we do have a lot of experts on YouTube and people who really know what the fuck they're talking about when they have these conversations. But like, that's also not most of us, right? So,
so it's like making it. Yeah, making it more accessible to a wider audience, and then they then have the choice to go deeper into it, should they so desire.
So you've been doing this for over a year now. Have you had any conversations with people that were maybe adversarial to you at first and are now cool with what you're doing, or like what's that experience been like?
So my mother-in-law is quite religious, and I still don't think she's a fan that I create content on it, and so we just don't discuss it. So that's kind of makes things a little bit awkward sometimes, because I get excited about what I've done and all the things that I'm learning, and I just want to talk about it, but there's only certain groups of people that I can talk to about it. So those that know and accept it, I talk to them about it, and they're fine with it. But so it's only every now and then that there's an awkward conversation.
Yeah, I can relate to that. It's like it's a no-fly zone for some of my family members when it comes to this stuff, even though I quite enjoy talking about this stuff. Like there's just family can be the most uncomfortable to talk to. I'd rather talk to strangers on the internet calling to the show than my family, like every day of the week. I don't know what it is, but it just makes it simpler. So like you've been doing this channel for a bit, and you're also in the US now. So you have you actually gotten any of those negative experiences that you were worried about, or has it been mostly pretty chill?
It's been mostly chill. I've only had maybe 2 conversations where people have found out that I am a non-believer of any deity, and they're gone, okay. And one lady, bless her, I didn't tell anybody for a long time. I say a long time. I've only been here for like 9 or 10 months, so I haven't been here that long. But I waited a while before I started letting people know, so they could get like an idea of what I was like as a person, and the fact that my non-belief doesn't change who I am. I'm
Yeah.
just that same person that doesn't believe. Anyway, so one lady found out that I didn't believe, and you could see that she was uncomfortable. And it took her probably 2 days to then come to me and say, now, I know we don't believe the same things, but I think we can still be friends. Okay, it wouldn't
Which
have
is
been an
just-
issue.
Wow, such a great thing. It's like I can't imagine saying that to somebody that's hey, you know what, dude? I know that you're a Christian, but
Right.
like I think we can make it work. Like, no, you like the same as 300 other million
Right.
Americans in this country. Like, okay, yeah, sure.
You have blue eyes. We can be friends. It's okay.
Yeah. But you know, like the prejudices that people talk about in this community, I mean, they are lifelong, right? Like, it's not like you're wearing a red A on your chest every day, and it's like,
Well,
oh,
sometimes
it's like, yeah, well, but it's not every day, right? It's like,
sure.
It does happen over a lifetime, but also like it's just not. You're probably not going to be talking to your work friends about like, oh, hey, these are my deeply held convictions about God not being real. Like, I don't know. Maybe some people do that. I'm not like that way. I kind of save all that for this space right here. But that also kind of makes it why I think people, I don't know, why people don't think about this stuff as much, because they're probably not having the conversations that we wish that they could be having, because maybe they don't have those tools. Maybe they don't have people that they can talk to that are content experts or knowledge experts on some of the stuff that we can't talk about. So I'm again thankful that you're trying to make things pretty accessible. I'd like to think I try to do the same thing with this show. And hey, if any of you guys are watching this and you just want to talk to two random dudes on the internet, you can call us right now. The number for that is 512-991-9242. Or you can visit the URL tiny.cc/calltw. And we'd love to talk to you. Like if you think we're super wrong and there is a God and we're going to burn in hell, we'll talk to you too. Or maybe you agree with us. Either way, we want to hear from you guys. So looking forward to having some conversations in just a bit. Right now, I'm just chilling with you, John. Chilling with you.
I'm enjoying it. It's very
good.
Nice.
I'm glad. And so you were also telling me before the show that you went to your first skeptic conferences / conventions recently. So how was that?
Yeah. Well, what I love about this country is that you can drive anywhere. So first off, kudos on that. But so yeah, my wife actually. Wife.
Wait, hold on. Side thing on that. There's too much driving in this country.
Really?
I think the advantage that you have where you're from is that you can just walk to fucking places, and that's fine.
True.
I can't walk to the grocery store where I'm at. I have to take a car. There's no sidewalks to get over there and stuff. We're not a pedestrian-friendly country for the most part. But anyway, that's a side tangent. I'm gonna let you finish. Go ahead.
But so actually, it's more my wife. My wife's brilliant. She's very supportive of all of this. She's a non-believer herself, and she went, "Oh, there's this convention down in Georgia. Do you want to go to it?" I was like, "Yes, I want to go to it," because in the UK, conventions for atheism and skepticism aren't really a thing, because the majority of the country is at least a nun. They don't have any belief. So
or maybe vaguely deist. Maybe
vaguely, but not so much that they talk about it in any way. It's more of a background thing, and the whole religion thing, which we can get into another time, is very much a tradition thing over there, more than like a belief structure. But anyway, so she said, "Do you want to go to this AA con down in Georgia?" And I went, "Yes, I want to go there." And at this point, like, nobody knew what this was, because I was still a circle, just a floating circle, and I was just talking to people, and you get the odd look going, "Oh, hang on. You're a British voice and you sound just like this thing. You're the person."
You're that guy.
Yeah, right. So I'm massive into meeting people and being part of a community. So going to stuff like that is definitely for me. So I had a great time at AA Con, made loads of friends, and met Dave Warnock as well, who I know is a friend of yours. The loveliest guy. And I've helped him out on some things as well, which we can talk about another time as well. So it's just great for meeting people. But recently, the weekend before last, I went to the Better conference up in Indiana. And that was just fun. There are only about
Awesome.
100 people that went to it. But I like being in a room with like-minded people who just want to make what we do normal. Like,
Yeah.
we don't believe in a higher power, and that's normal. And, you get to hang out with people who do that and almost validate your position, which is another thing that I feel like my channel does. I like to validate what people think about things. So, it's just, I love it. And I'm going to be going to way more, thanks to my wife, who says, right, you're going to this one next, and you're going to this one next, and you're going to
There you
this
go.
one next.
That's
She's
awesome.
great.
I haven't gotten
Yeah.
to go to any this year, which I'm kind of bummed out about. But I remember the first one I went to was actually, it was AACon 2018. And I remember feeling that exact same feeling you're talking about. It's kind of this exhilaration almost, where it's like, oh, finally, these people that, like, these are conversations I was just having with people online mostly. But suddenly I'm in a whole room full of people that feel the same way as I do about this thing. And that's unusual, especially where I'm from. I also noticed that at the time I was in college when I first went, these conferences, two things I noticed: they tend to skew older. They tend to skew with, I'd say, 30 plus, 40 plus, which is fine, I guess. I think that makes sense. Younger people, maybe they don't need it as much. I don't know.
Right.
But the other thing I noticed too was there's a lot of introverts at these conferences and conventions. And that's so funny, because I think you and I are on the same page. We're both pretty extroverted people. And being in a room full of introverts when you're the only extrovert, I think is pretty fun for me, because I can just kind of start these conversations with folks that would otherwise not have these conversations with each other. But I love that there's still conventions and conferences and stuff that talk about this stuff. And I imagine it's probably a bit of a culture shock for you too, since, again, for some people, this is their first time they can talk about being a non-believer in a public space. And not feel uncomfortable. Like, that is a luxury for a lot of people in this country, which is might be unusual for a lot of international listeners who watch this show and think, oh, well, it's pretty much normal here. It is not. It is not the norm to be a non-believer for the most part in the United States. So very different.
I found that it depends on the pockets that you're in and which denomination that you're in, because there are Catholics who, it certainly seems, they're a lot more open to people being non-believers. And
America is a patchwork of random ideologies that don't sometimes make sense together, and for better or worse, right? Like, if I go to down in the street here in my apartment complex and I ask people what they think about things, I guarantee, like, we'll find some cognitive dissonance on their beliefs in like 5 minutes. Like, it won't take too long. But at the same time, I don't know, there's something fun about that. I like the wackiness that this country can produce sometimes. It provides me endless entertainment, even if it is at the expense of most people. I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, John, I'm really excited that we get to have you here on this show. And I think we should go ahead and talk to some callers who want to talk to you too. What do you think?
I think that's a good idea.
Awesome. Well, before we get to those callers, I have to give a shout out to the patron of the week, because every single week I always give a shout out to one person who donates on patreon.com/truthwanted. Everybody who donates is awesome and you all rock. But you guys know I always got to give at least one shout out every week. So this week's patron of the week is going to be, drum roll, please. It's still getting on the screen. It's going to be there any second now. It's SkeptiKarl. Thank you so much, SkeptiKarl, for being a patron, not a Patreon, a patron. Some people get those confused. They're different. Thank you for being a patron on Patreon, and thank you to everybody that donates on Patreon. You guys rock, and you guys help make this show happen every single week. Just a reminder, I'm a volunteer, and most of the people that make this show are also volunteers. So whenever you donate, that doesn't go in my pocket. That helps make this show better, and also helps make the atheist community of Austin a better place to be. So thank you again for doing that. And now let's take this. Let's talk to some people. You ready, John?
I'm ready.
Okay, so we were talking about this call too. This person was calling before the show. Very excited because this seems like a good story. I'm ready for this conversation. We're talking to Sven, who's calling in from Maryland. Sven, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, you two random dudes. How are you doing?
Doing all right. How are you doing, Sven?
I'm excited. Big fan. I've been binge watching pretty much all ACA shows, so I'm very excited to be on.
Awesome. Well, okay, so I don't always do this. I have to read it out. Our call screener writes out descriptions of our calls before we talk to people so we know what we're getting into. You say you want to promote skepticism, but you make a living creating ghost hunting apps? Sven, what? Tell me about this. You make ghost hunting apps?
Yes, I do. I do. It's I kind of just like fell into that. I was like watching a show on Netflix with my wife, and like a ghost hunting show. I was like, oh, let's watch some like awful stuff on Netflix, and I got a kick out of that. And I saw them use like a phone app, and it was like really garbage. And I thought like, hey, I can do that just for fun. So I did that, and now like I make a living with it. So
when you say, hold on, wait a minute.
know what
When
to
you
do
say
with
make a living, Sven, when you say make a living, do you mean your
Yes,
primary
yes.
source of income like is from this app or apps?
My primary source of income is from ghost hunting apps. Yes.
No
That's
fucking
incredible.
way, dude. I'm losing it. That's so I can't. Sven, dude, what? You're that guy, dude. You're that guy that people are like, man, I bet somebody's making money off of this stuff right now. You're that guy.
Yeah.
Sven, dude, I don't know. I don't know what to say to this because on one hand, I'm like, that's fucking awesome. But on the other hand, I'm like, well, it's bullshit, right? So like, okay, what are these apps?
Yes, of
like,
course I
maybe,
do. Yes,
maybe
I
you
do.
do. Okay, don't tell me the names because
Right.
we don't do that. Tell
Sure.
what are the functions that you say that these apps do? Let's start with that because I want to know. I'm curious.
Well, I mean, the functions that they do, I'm basically like talk to the paranormal around you is like very general, broad statements. So it's nothing very specific. And
what is it? Are you
shows you-
finding magnetic waves? Is it like a word generator?
I'm not doing anything. It is just it shows random words. I mean I have like fancy looking graphs that like beep and do all kinds of things because it's like those lie detector apps, I guess you could say, just like entertainment for the most part. It's like it looks fun and it just throws random words out, and people, I guess, find their own meaning in those. How if you give someone like two words, they will be able to like kind of make it relate to them, and that's kind of what that is.
Do you have anywhere
So, yeah,
on your app?
Yeah.
Sorry, do you have anywhere on your app that it says like this is for fun and not to be taken seriously, or is it? Do you just put it out there as though it is the
line
real?
in the store says the first line in the store says like this is for entertainment and there is no ghost hunting.
Okay.
abilities, but
Okay.
yeah, that's a little bit like a disclaimer. It's like, oh, don't do this, but then people will still do it. Obviously, it's
Well,
Jeez.
I'd say that because you've got that disclaimer on there, you can kind of, if people want to buy it, even though it says this is definitely for entertainment purposes, that's up to them if they want to do it. I wouldn't say you would be you're a part of the problem if you're honest about it.
they're free apps, but is it part that's my question. Like, I'm not entirely sure if I'm not part of the problem. It's a little bit like working as a theist in a church. Like you're taking money from something that you would otherwise tell people like, oh, this is not real.
Well,
You
so
see where I'm
like
coming from?
when I think about this, I think it's a bit of a spectrum, right? Because like when I think of like psychics, like psychics who really think they're the shit, and then there's psychics that obviously know exactly what they're doing and are just telling people what they want to hear. Like that to me is the lowest of the low. Like,
Right.
I just think that's scum. Same thing with like preachers who are pretending to heal people for money and stuff like that. Like if you ever seen the documentary Marjo, like it's exactly what you think it would be. With like it shows a guy who is up on stage who's trying to perform these miracles, and then like 5 seconds later it's just interviewing him in his room. It's like, yeah, look at all these money I made from all these people. Like that to me is evil. But if you've got a disclaimer at the top, I feel like that's okay, because I don't know, like there's entertainment in this world that people can have and go to. Like some people say they go to psychics for entertainment. I think that's crazy, because that's like you're just losing money, but somebody's just telling you bullshit. If you're downloading a free app and you're making money, I'm assuming based on ad revenue, or other sources.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have like premium content on there. Okay, so like I don't know, man. That seems okay. What do you think, John? Because like that's
Yeah, and well, fun story. My gran believed she was a psychic, and a clairvoyant. So I have that as a background. My family used to believe in like spiritualism and that I had the gift. But yeah, no, I agree. If you're like giving people entertainment, and it says there that it's absolutely fine. This is for entertainment purposes only. You're well within your rights to do it. But yeah, I agree with the whole people charging for things that I could do. I can go and give people positive affirmations and take their money. I just wouldn't, because that's a terrible thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, how do you feel about this, Sven? You called in because you're conflicted about this.
Well, I am obviously, yes, I am conflicted because on one hand, yes, it's a little bit like, oh, I'm selling like a Ouija board. You know, it's the thing by itself is, you're not really saying like, yes, ghost exists, but here's a thing that you can maybe talk to spirits. Who knows? And that's kind of how I'm seeing it. But I do wonder because, you know, when I talk to theists, I will get into arguments and like, you know, try to point out, you know, like don't believe something if there's no evidence for it yet.
Dude,
I kind of just fell into that. So
Sven, one day you're going to talk to some guy who's like, yeah, man, I believe in ghosts. I totally found one through this app. And you're going to be like, I got some fucking news for you. I'm gonna love that. That's going to be awesome. No, I don't, but like, again, it's like, it's about the claims, right? Are you making claims that this actually can contact the dead? Then yeah, I would say that's wrong. I don't think you should do that. But if it's right there at the top, I don't know. I mean, the only thing is with that is people don't read. And so like there's inevitably going to be somebody.
I'm fully aware of that. Yes.
Yeah. If you've got, I mean, like just, you know, it's going to happen. Some kid, 12-year-old kid is going to download that app and is probably going to think, yeah, this is real. So that's something you have to think about because that's just going to happen. So I don't know what to tell you for a situation like that. That seems like a causal inevitability, right? I mean, do you agree, John?
Yeah, and Sven's got to make some money. He's got to pay his bills. And being honest, I'm fully on board with this, to be honest.
John's full hog. John's
I want to download it.
Trick those 12-year-olds. That's what John's take is.
That's what I am.
Well, I'm trying not to, but you know, in the end, like one thing that I noticed is that you know, you get tons of reviews where people say, "Oh, it's fake," but you will get so many people that are 100% convinced with long-winded stories of like how legit these apps are, and I'm sitting there and it's like, I know these are, it's, you know, it's random words. Like people will see what they want to see. So,
well, you know,
don't even need to advertise it.
I like that you're at least conflicted about it because I guarantee you the other developers in that app store, probably half of them are just like, yeah, fuck it. I'm just going to make money off of this. So I don't know. I think that says something, but that's a hard issue, man, especially if it's like, it's become your income. I don't know. Maybe what you should do. Here's what you should do, Sven. I have an idea. Okay. I have an idea. You need to make another app that debunks other ghost apps. I think you need to make the anti-app. And then you can make money off of that from ads.
Yes.
Double dipping.
Yes, dude, you're playing both sides. Yeah.
I'm with that. I also think it might be a good idea on the original app to, because I'm guessing you've got like this just a random word generator that you can control the code on, right? I would put just like a random, this app is not real, just appears every like 300 rotations or something.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Dude, I could see that.
There you go.
Teach skepticism through subliminal messaging.
There you go.
Yeah. That's
where you get them. They don't expect it in a ghost hunting app.
Exactly.
It's the get them there.
The ghost saying, "This isn't real, idiot." Like I would love that.
That would be hilarious.
But man, you know what? I mean, Sven, first of all, props to you for actually calling in and saying like, yeah, this isn't real. That's awesome. To me, that's just total baller move to just say like, yeah, I'm fully aware that this isn't like actually helping people contact the dead. This is just for entertainment. I don't know. To me, that's a kind of conviction that a lot of people don't have. So I think you're in the right spot. Like, as long as you are very as clear as you can be, maybe again, like maybe what John's saying, but like maybe more realistically, having somewhere when you open the app itself, maybe about the about info page or something on there that says, like, hey, this is for entertainment purposes. Yeah. Like, I think that's a fair middle ground, you know?
Okay. Yeah. I like that. It's really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, Sven. That is
my favorite.
That's like
brilliant.
That is. I love doing this show, man. I could only have a conversation about that on this show. Sven, thank you so much for calling in and telling me about that, because that's made my whole day. I got it, man. I love that. You never hear it. You never hear it from the people, because you always assume, right? You always assume. You never know. Do they think this is real too, or are they just like totally callous about
cashing
it? And
in,
Sven's just like, yeah, I'm cashing in, baby.
Good
I'm writing these checks. That's awesome.
I love it.
Oh, any other thoughts on that call, John?
Well, just that I want to see what this app is, because I'm really intrigued. I
Yeah,
feel like there are some prank apps, and if you sell it as a prank app, then great, because you can have some fun with stuff like that.
That's another thing. Oh, we should have told Sven that. Sven, if you're listening, sell it as a prank app.
There you go.
That can be another thing too. That obviously there's still a market for prank apps, I think.
Absolutely.
In the year of our Lord 2022, I think that's still happening. I remember when like iPhones were first coming out, and do you remember like having like a Flippo lighter app was like the coolest fucking thing? Or you had the app where it's like you're drinking the beer, and like you tip the phone. Like, that was hot shit in 2007. Now you got to ramp it up by having random word generators that claim that you're contacting the deceased.
There you go.
I don't know. That's something else, man. That was a great call. What a start to this night. I just want to tell you folks that this show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a nonprofit organization that produces a bunch of other shows. But one of the ways you can help support this show is by checking out our merch store. If you're interested in getting a hoodie or getting a t-shirt or getting a mug or anything, all that also helps the ACA when you make that purchase. And we're doing a new thing now for Truth Wanted. We're having a monthly shirt club going on. So this month's shirt is it's like a postcard from Austin here. We got all the weird stuff on there. Honestly, it's pretty Americana in general, but Austin is, I gotta say, from firsthand experience, a pretty weird place to live. So if you want to get something from Austin, or say that, hey, I like this show and it's from Austin, check out that shirt and all the other stuff that we got going on. We would really appreciate you doing that. For now, I want to talk to some other callers that have called in. Let's talk to Richard, who's calling in from Arizona. Richard, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, not much, except for my blood pressure and cholesterol, but that's another story.
It is what it is, my bud. It is what it is.
Yeah. I'm 57. My wife just told me she just went, not just, but in the past year got back into Christianity by way of her sister. She told me the other day, make a long story short, she told me the other day that she and her sister and Corey, my stepson, were going to be prayer warriors for me to come back to Jesus. So
prayer warriors for you.
Geez.
So does that mean they're having organized prayer sessions? Yeah. What does that mean exactly?
Well, no, I really don't know. I think that just means they'll pray for me every night whenever they go to bed or something. I don't think it's one big, video session. I don't think it's that, or it could be. Okay. I don't know. Hell, like I say, just found out about it, and how I'm just afraid of how they're going to react, because my wife is convinced. Because that's one of her. That one of her. That's her biggest fear. Is me going to hell because I don't believe in Jesus, And I used to. I was saved, rededicated my life and did all that stuff when I was in high school and some in college. But Yeah, I was going to go to be a youth minister and go to Christ for the Nations, this setup they have over there in Dallas. And so anyway, I finally found out I didn't have a good reason to believe the things I did. So now I don't know how, if she's going to think I'm given over to a reprobate mind if I don't come over to the side or whatever, or Satan already has me. I don't know what's going to happen when this doesn't work. Of course it could work. Hey, there's always a possibility of something happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just kind of flummoxed.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about this. I remember there's this one girl I knew that was part of an SSA group when I was in college, which is SSA is the Secular Student Alliance group. And she was this huge goth girl, was totally into like the Wiccan aesthetic, whatever, right? Was like super cool, was the last person you'd expect to ever go back to Christianity. And she did. Like, I just checked her Facebook like a month ago, and she just went on like a mission trip to like Costa Rica. And I'm just like, holy shit, like, you are not the same person I thought you were. And it's troubling because it's like, I don't want to say that Christianity tricked her, but because I mean, she's her own woman, she can make her own decisions. But at the same time, it's like, I obviously understand you're a different person now than what I know you because of this ideology, really, right? And on that note, I'm talking about ideology. You could probably relate to this too, Richard, like when you were a Christian. But when I was a Christian, I thought being a Christian, being a good person, meant doing those things that your wife and your wife's sister are talking about, which is praying for other people, telling people about the word, and preventing people from going to an eternal place of torment, right? Like, if you legitimately believe that that is real and that could happen, like, of course you want to save your loved ones from that. And that's why it's so hard to talk about this, because obviously we don't think it's real, right? We don't think that this is a thing, but there's always these questions of like, oh, what if? And then I think that really gets you. So as far as how do you handle a situation like this, man, that's tough, because obviously you've been in a relationship with this woman, and you probably feel like, she's turning into somebody else that's different from what you knew. Like, I don't want to make presumptions, but obviously, like, that sounds like a big change. The best thing you can do for yourself, Richard, is to be honest. I think personally, like, I think, I wouldn't give advice to someone who has obviously lived a lot more life than me. But like, I have found with my own personal relationships, when I have had to leave the Christian faith, and now people know that I talk about this stuff on YouTube and other stuff, like, I found that the people who were stuck around in my life were the ones that still cared about me the most, and were the people that I needed in my life. Because the people who weren't going to accept me for who I was, and who weren't going to respect me for who I were, they weren't going to add anything to my life anyway. And I don't know, like, I don't want this to, the last thing I would want is for this to be like a big blow to your relationship. But at the same time, you also have to think about yourself too. Cause like, you're never going to be a Christian again, probably. Right. So that's not going to be a big deal for you. And if that's going to be a big deal for her, like, that's on her. It honestly is. Like, she's got to be able to work with that. I don't know. I mean, John, what do you think? Cause I think is tough.
Yeah, I think communication's key in any situation. So, I mean, if it actually offends you that that your wife would be praying for you, I'd say I'd rather you didn't, because if it doesn't offend you, I'd be like, well, how long are you going to be praying for? Because I can use that time to go and watch a show or something on TV. I like to find humor in anything. So I'd be like, oh, you're praying for me for the next 45 minutes. Great. I'll go and play Assassin's Creed on the Xbox for that long whilst you're doing it. That's how I deal with it. And the whole hell thing is probably one of the hardest things to move away from when you become a non-believer, because there's always that thought of whether or not it is a real place, and am I going to go there even though I don't believe in all this? And there are places that you can go to help you talk that out. Recovering from religion and whatnot.
Secular Therapy Project.
Yeah, great. Yeah, there's
are great resources. And obviously, I'm not a marriage counselor, so I can't tell you there. I could only tell you from my perspective as someone, Richard, who has also had to come out to people who, I mean, I told this one girl that I used to work with at a Christian camp. I invited her to work out with this camp with me because I became her manager. Like, I knew this girl since college. And when she found out about this, she straight up called me and was like, you're going to hell. Like she said that straight to my face. Well, not to my face, but it was over the phone. But she used those words, right? And it's like, that's tough. That's harsh. Fortunately, a lot of people that I knew weren't like that. Most people just kind of drifted away. But like everybody's gonna be a bit different about this based on how they're interpreting their ideology. You know, she's got to figure this stuff out too. She's got to figure out how she's gonna live her life with you in it too, as someone who isn't a believer. If she's not strategizing, she's thinking about, like, you know, I don't know what else she can really do, because that's tough. I think this is like one of the worst aspects of organized religion, especially that in Christianity, is this idea of there's almost a curtain of believers and non-believers that you have to stay on one side of. You're kind of, you know, there's different debates on if you should even associate with non-believers, right? Like there's even some people that say you shouldn't even talk to these people. And it's like, that's a, I don't know. It's a disgusting thing. I really think it is. I think it's one of the worst things you can do to somebody, to shun them because you think something different. And we're not talking about the difference between somebody being a Nazi and somebody not be, right? We're talking about the difference between, oh, I just don't think this thing is real. I don't think this thing guides my life in the same way. But it's very hard.
Yeah.
I'm finding difficulty. I don't know, trying to give my best perspectives to you, Richard, but we've been talking for a bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually was bought a book by my wife, and it's called How to Have Impossible Conversations, and that's a great thing that I've used, and it's really helped me with not when it comes to having conversations with believers. It's helped me to not go, no, you're wrong because X. It gives you a way of looking at what they believe and taking like a neutral stance on it and questioning them. And it's a really good way of helping guide someone to really understand what they why they believe what they do believe, and without being forceful about it. So that I mean that's another resource that might help.
Sure.
Yeah.
Richard, any thoughts on this?
Okay. Oh yeah. Well, when I told my stepson that I appreciated that they were praying for me. You know, first of all, I didn't say don't.
Your stepson's in there too.
I'm
man.
Yeah.
That's an extra element.
So I told him that I appreciate it, and that they care enough for me to take the time to pray for me, and they're that concerned about me. But you know, I don't expect anything. I mean, Could you maybe put like a time limit on it? The Bible should have a disclaimer on it.
Yeah.
The Bible should have a disclaimer.
You're talking about disclaimers? Yeah. It's like, geez, that you use at your own use, you know, for entertainment purpose only, you know. Don't
Oh man, I wish. Holy man.
And could you maybe like say to your family, look, okay, well, let's say you pray for the next 6 months, and if nothing changes, then don't worry about praying for me because it's clearly not going to work. You know, maybe put a time limit on them on it for them as well.
Right.
That might help things.
Yeah. Or say, hey,
put the time limit. I don't know. I'll let them do whatever they want to. You know.
Sure.
I mean, it's not affecting me as far as I can see. You know, I can't say for certain. You know, but hey.
You could say, you know, if God wants a relationship.
Okay. Well, thank you ever so much, guys.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's true. I mean, yeah. If you want to go ahead and go, Richard, that's totally fine. I was just going to add, you know, if you know, if you want to talk about your relationship with God, I mean, to me, that was always a very personal thing, right? That was always an emphasis in my Christian background. That's a very personal thing. And I would emphasize, well, look, if God wants to have that conversation with me, that's with me and him. Like, you don't have to be the instigator of that. Otherwise, you really don't have faith in him. I mean, honestly, like I think that's a logical progression that some Christians might get behind. Not all of them, obviously, but I definitely talk to some that truly believe, your faith is your own, and that's your own path. Maybe they don't feel that way, but I don't know, something to talk about at least. But I think at the end of the day, Richard, you should be honest, and it sounds like you're being honest with them, so that's good.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. But I just tell her, we get into conversations about God, me and my wife, and I asked her, why do you believe in? And she gets upset because she can't really come up with something, and the only reason she said is she wants to see her father in heaven. That's the reason she gave. I was like, oh god. Yeah.
Right.
Like, oh,
and
boy.
If more people were honest with themselves,
anyway.
Yeah, that's something they might say. I mean, for myself, I wanted to avoid punishment from God. I really was afraid of the wrath of God. I had a real like Pascal's wager thing going on for me. It was like, well, I think it's better to believe than not. I really thought that.
Oh yeah.
That says something about what an environment of fear can do to someone's beliefs. And fear is also a motivation in that too. Like the fear of not being able to see your loved ones again. That's almost, to me, that's an implicit threat, which is, I don't know. It's a really sad thing. But anyway, Richard, I do appreciate you calling in and letting us know about it. I hope we were able to give you at least some perspectives on how to handle this. And there's also tons of resources out there like this. Yeah, like check out the Secular Therapy Project and other people if you need to talk to other people about this as well. But I do wish you well on your journey, and also like talk to the chat here in this on this show too. I'm sure there's other people that can talk to you and relate to your experiences. But anyway, Richard, thanks again for calling in, and I wish you well. Man, that's a tough conversation, John.
Yeah,
that's really tough. What do you think about that?
It really struck me when he said that his wife believes because she wants to see, was it her dad in an afterlife?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
that really struck me because I'm not from a religious background, but I was from a spiritualist background, which is more believing in an afterlife, and that was the hardest thing for me to let go of, was the fact that I've got people that have gone that I'm going to miss, and one day I'm going to be able to see them, but now it's coming to terms with not being able to see them. So that kind of struck hard. But I mean, I wish him well. I hope he manages to have good conversations with his wife.
So something I wanted to say earlier too, when he was talking about having them pray for you, like there's a lot of atheists that interpret that as ignorant, but also as offensive. And I think they have every right to be offended by an act like that. But I think there's something to be said, as someone who grew up in a Christian background, what sincere people really mean when they say that they're praying for you. Like when you follow the logical extent of that ideology and you're praying for somebody, you are genuinely doing the best thing you can to help them. Like that is what that says for them. Like when you're asked to how you deal with something, like you do it through prayer. And to me, what that says is, like, obviously there's some cognitive dissonance going on there. There is a trouble in a relationship. It wouldn't, if he wasn't calling about it, there wouldn't be a problem, right?
Right.
And if she's having a conversation with him, it's obviously bothering her. So she's dealing with that by prayer. And whether or not that's the healthiest coping mechanism or not, we can talk about. But like, obviously that's a way of dealing with stress. That's a way of dealing with a situation. And I think that's something to be acknowledged in a situation like this, because I do see this topic come up where people say, oh, somebody said they're praying for me, and I just thought it was the worst thing in the world. And I totally get that, because it is kind of a violation of your beliefs, right? It's somebody trying to say, well, I think you should change so that we can have a better relationship. And yes, that's totally fair. But also, it also means sometimes that they are being sincere and they are trying to work something out. And I don't know, that's just an observation I have.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
It's a difficult situation all around, but I hope you're able to work it through, because sometimes it has lifelong, there's lifelong complications there. Sometimes people do work it through. My family doesn't like that I do this stuff, and I'm still here doing it. So, as long as you're honest with yourself, that's what I always say. But hey, I'm talking a lot here, and we have a quick promo that we need to show you guys, talking about some of the other shows we have here on the network. So check it out.
Hell, I mean, I've been having sex with myself for like 25 years, and I still am discovering new things. I'm still like weirding myself out. I'm still surprising myself. After all these years, it's still special.
He's a PhD,
yeah,
who believes the Nephilim of the Bible, the ancient giants described in the Bible built the pyramids. Yep, you go to school for like 8 years, and you're like, yeah, man, it was giants.
I know.
I live in a blue state, so people will say, oh, don't worry, your uterus is fine, your rights are fine. But I genuinely give no flying about that, when millions of women in over 13 states so far have essentially lost their entire bodily autonomy.
There is truly an afterlife where myself and Ben will go and party, and I will no longer have these rashes that he refuses to look at. If that's the case, what the am I waiting for?
We use inductive reasoning in science because deductive reasoning is rife with fallacies and bias. We use inductive reasoning because that way we look at what the evidence says and draw a conclusion from it rather than trying to rule out conclusions based on the only things that we can possibly think of.
And we're back to Truth Wanted here. I'm ObjectivelyDan, and joining me is John, the skeptic, and we are going to keep talking to some more callers. So let's keep the conversation going. Next, we're going to talk to Ricardo, who's calling from Italy. Ricardo, welcome to the show.
My European brother.
Hi there. Hi there.
Ricardo, what's going on?
Everything's fine, thanks. I was going to ask you for some help because I have a little trouble in understanding basically the relationship between the Old Testament and the New. Yeah, I know. Okay. I'm really asking to an atheist to clarify something about Christianity, but I know you are way more of a Christian than I ever was, so maybe you can help me, or maybe if someone who's listening that is a Christian can maybe call in this time or next week and clarify it for me. That would be fantastic.
Well, Ricardo, I'll help you out here. You want to know the difference between the New Testament and the Old Testament because you're not too sure about it. And honestly, that's a great question. There's a lot of people who aren't familiar with these texts and the history of them. So I'll give you a brief kind of history lesson here on what we're talking about. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just for maybe some particular things. For example, how God basically changed his mind, and how can a Christian accept it. That's it.
Okay. Yes. So I'll explain how that works too, theologically, how explanations work. But first, we're going to talk about what these texts are. So when we talk about the Old Testament is a Christian name for these texts. The Jewish people obviously don't call it the Old Testament because they don't have the New Testament. That's not a part of their teachings. The books are called the Tanakh. That is the name for all of the books. You may have heard the Torah. The Torah is part of the Tanakh. Okay, the Torah consists of what's called the Pentateuch, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis through Numbers, and was allegedly written by Moses, right? And then you have these other writings that are about the prophets, and then there's also some extra biblical works like the Talmud and stuff that are commentaries on that. Okay, so that's what the Jewish religion primarily prescribes to. Obviously, different denominations have different ideas of these texts. At some point during the development of Christianity, there are, of course, other texts. And keep in mind, there are other Jewish texts as well that may or may not be considered canon as well. There's lots of different writings that come and go as religions develop. And as the Bible is kind of coming into its own, there's lots of different texts that are being, talking about what Jesus was specifically and what his teachings mean for people and what it means for people to be Christians. That's basically what the New Testament is. It has to deal with Jesus and the relationship of Christians to the church. Obviously, Jewish people don't usually think much of Jesus other than maybe he was a teacher, but they don't usually see him as the Messiah. There are Messianic Jews, but that's a whole other thing. Okay, so you have these books that Jewish people don't listen to, but these Christians do. So how do you work with that? Well, there is something called the New Covenant theology, okay? And there's Old Covenant and the New Covenant. The Old Covenant, right, is this idea when you're talking about literally the covenant, like the Ark of the Covenant was this thing that the Jewish people were supposed to keep up with. Long story short, they didn't. Yeah. And then we had some Indiana Jones movies that kind of talked about it too. But that was supposed to be the relationship between them and God. Jewish people actually used to give sacrifices to God, animal sacrifices, and that's how they would cleanse themselves of their sins. That's how they work with that. Jesus is supposed to be this thing, this intermediary where you actually don't have to make those sacrifices. You can just pray to Jesus and he covers you for your sins, right? So you don't have to actually acknowledge some of the texts and some of the old law. In fact, Jesus talks about rejecting some of the old law and says that he's the law. You gotta have to follow him. But there's also debate about whether the 10 Commandments are part of that. It doesn't make sense. But this is how people kind of work with this, right? So basically, a long story short, Jewish people, at least traditional Jewish people, will still follow a lot of these old rules. They'll still follow these laws. When Christianity was coming into its own, they're basically saying we don't actually have to follow these laws to be a Christian. In fact, one of the biggest early debates in Christianity was whether or not you had to follow the law. And it's written in the New Testament. If you look at the conversations between Peter and Paul, at least what's alluded to in the New Testament, they are talking about it. Paul's all like, yeah, we're fine. We don't have to do these old ways. And Peter's like, no, you have to be circumcised in order to be saved. That was literally a conversation. It's in the New Testament. You can talk about it. So that's how Christians, reference these texts. And that's why they call it the Old Testament versus the New Testament. This New Testament is supposed to be this new ideas and stuff. And that's why they also have an emphasis on the workings of Jesus, because these old laws aren't supposed to necessarily apply to Christians. Like that's why the Sabbath, you work on the Sabbath, all these other kinds of things that Jewish people typically don't do. So does that make sense, Ricardo? I know that's kind of a long explanation there.
Yeah, that makes sense. But okay, for example, is there anything in the New Testament about maybe gay people? Because in the Old Testament there is Leviticus 18, I think. That says that's no go. And Christians generally follow this. But for example, Leviticus 11 that says, we should not eat pork. Well, I never heard of a Christian that doesn't eat pork for his religion.
Again, this goes back to this idea that the old law doesn't actually apply to Christians. And that's what Christians will say. We don't follow this old covenant. We have the new covenant through Jesus. Now, of course, does that mean you have to drop the attitudes about gay people? Well, it's complicated. It depends on which interpretations of the Bible you want to follow. Okay, so does Jesus talk about gay people? No. Jesus doesn't actually really talk about homosexuality, but Paul does. And how Paul talks about it, and remember, the Apostle Paul comprises most of the New Testament. Most of the New Testament are letters written by Paul, and his interpretation of Christianity is how Christianity has been. In fact, I would say Paul is probably the most important contributor to Christianity outside of Jesus, right? Like Paul pretty much has made this religion. And there's a verse in Romans that talks about the best way to put it is same-sex relations. Now, the reason I have to say same-sex relations is obviously because they didn't have the same concepts about homosexuality that we do today versus, 2,000 years ago in ancient Palestine, right? Like we kind of have these modern labels there. And there's debate in scholarship as to what Paul is actually mean. There are some people that say, well, he's actually talking about people who do idolatrous things in the temple. He's actually talking about these eunuchs. He's not actually talking about gay people. He's talking about people who were specific in the society at the time that were doing these things. And that's kind of the more liberal scholarship interpretation of it. The conservative end of that, which is something you already know, Ricardo, which is, this means that gay people don't get to go to heaven. But he does say, some interpretations of the Bible will literally say homosexuals will not get to enter the kingdom of heaven, but that's going to depend on your interpretation. So in short, Ricardo, it's complicated. There's a lot of translation stuff that goes into it. There's a lot of ancient history work that goes into it. At the end of the day, of course, I don't follow my rules based on what an old book tells me to do. So it doesn't inform my worldview whatsoever, but it does inform the worldview of millions of people around the world. So it's important to have that conversation. But it's mostly Paul that's saying that. It's definitely not Jesus. Jesus doesn't actually comment on that, really. So there you go. Does that give you more clarity?
Okay. Yeah, I hope that I could say in a debate that, that's not in the New Testament. That's so shut the fuck up about gay people. But
Paul does say it.
They have an excuse.
If you were to ask
A
me,
very bad
I would
excuse. But
if you were to ask me, I think Paul would not be cool with gay people, right? If Paul was living in the world today and he saw same-sex relationships in the constructs that we have it today, because remember, they didn't have long-term marriages between men. They had sexual relations between men, and they had these relationships that were kind of different from the constructs we have today. I would imagine he would say, yeah, this isn't good. I that is my take. There's other, of course, people who are much more versed in the scholarship than I am that have argued and have literally written whole books that say otherwise. I don't fall into that view of scholarship. I think that's putting a more progressive lens on the Bible than is actually there. I wish the Bible was more progressive. I wish it would serve minority communities like LGBT plus communities and in their interests, but I honestly don't think it does, which is why I don't think we need these texts. But also, that's not going to fly with Christians, right? You either have the Bible or you don't. And if you do have the Bible, you have to follow what it says. If the Bible says, homosexuals will not enter the kingdom of heaven, then that's what the Bible says. So yeah, unfortunately, if you're going to go that route in the debate, that's going to be a bit trickier to do. I would just more say, do you think this is right or not? Do you think this is okay? Like that's, that's where you got to go. But
anyway. So how can someone be consistent in being progressive Christian? I mean,
cognitive dissonance, but also again, there are progressive scholars that will have these more progressive takes on the Bible. And it is a minority opinion in scholarship, as far as I'm aware, especially in regards to homosexuality and kind of other social issues. But they do exist, and they do exist in academia, and they have PhDs, and they will make that work because they have to follow this religion, and they have to say that this book is what's going to dictate how you're going to live your life. And so you want to be able to interpret it in the best way possible that's going to work best for your life. And I think that's how people do it, honestly. But, that's just my take. There's probably somebody who is screaming at me right now saying, no, if you look at the original Hebrew, or if you look at, in the New Testament, in the letters of Paul, it's going to be Greek, right? That says, if you use this word. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. But the fact is, most Christians don't. And most Christians aren't going to care. They're going to have their prejudices, and they're going to interpret it the same way. In this country in particular, interracial marriage was not cool, and a lot of people use the Bible to justify that. You can look at a lot of people of pastors and priests of every nation that say yes, this isn't biblical. And now if you have a take like that in today's world, you're gonna get looked at kind of funny for most people. But that was used for a long time, and I imagine 50 years from now, people are going to say, oh no, this is how we should always have interpreted the Bible, and maybe they'll sweep in the injustices that have happened to LGBT plus communities under the rug. I think that's what's going to happen. The progressive Christians do exist. They've called into the show. They've talked to me, and they're out in the world, and they somehow make the square peg fit in the round hole, but I can't get there,
Okay. And, are there any at least in the US? Well, there will be, but how common are they? Christians that at least
progressive Christians?
Maybe no. Not yes, progressive Christians, but that they specifically think, okay, that's our book, but. It was maybe vaguely inspired by our divinity, but at the end of the day, it was written by men. So there are a lot of things that are from the past and should not apply today. But
I couldn't tell you.
I have the perception that there is a lot of taking the Bible literally in the US, at least.
So it's hard to say exactly.
I don't know in Italy because I'm kind of oblivious, but
it's hard to say exactly, Ricardo, exactly what percentage of Christians believe in what. I know, surveys from BioLogos say that about a third of Americans, or close to a third, believe in a literal young Earth. and believe in that part of the Bible. So I imagine they're going to take the rest of the Bible pretty literally. I couldn't tell you what percentage of Christians actually think, oh, the Bible was created by man. There's definitely a lot of people, Christians, surprisingly more than you think, that do realize that these texts are written by people, and you should take with that as you will. But I don't think that that's the majority in the country. I think if you ask the average American Christian if the Bible was written by God, or at least influenced by God, maybe blessed by God, or God helped write it, whatever, I think most of them would say yes. Like God had some hand in it, because that's how this thing has legitimacy, right? Like if it's just written by people, well, then who cares? There's like all books are written by people. What makes this one more special than the other one? Well, this one, God had a hand in writing this bad boy right here. So that's why we have to listen to it. Now, there's some Christians that say, well, that's not why we should care about it. We should care about it because of the moral teachings it provides, and because they try not to make the fact that Jesus is essentially saying you have to listen to me or else. But I mean, it is kind of that, though, to an extent,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. I hope that was a couple of different questions, but they were all good questions, Ricardo. I'm glad you got to ask them, and thanks so much for calling all the way from Italy, which is fantastic. John, I've been talking a lot for this one, obviously.
That's your area of expertise. That's fine.
Sure. Any thoughts on that conversation, though?
I mean, it sounded like he just wanted to have some rebuttals for when people say, "Oh, it says this in the Bible," and he wanted to just go. And I think the best way to know what the Bible says is to read the Bible. Go and have a look and read it yourself. I'm actually doing that at the moment because I've never read it. And some people may be new to non-belief and thinking that picking up the Bible is going to make them become believers again that they don't want to be. But I've seen so many people say that actually I became an atheist because I read the Bible. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about that. But if you want to know what's in the Bible, read the Bible.
Yes. I think one of the biggest mistakes non-believers make in our community is assuming that Christians have a literalist interpretation of the Bible, right? Because that's a common thing in the United States, but that's not necessarily common worldwide. And it's again, you have to meet people where they're at when you're having these conversations. Obviously, if somebody is coming up to me and says, "Oh yeah, the Bible says homosexuality is wrong," I mean, I don't give a shit. I don't care what the Bible says. So that's irrelevant to me. But if we really want to have a discussion on, does the Bible actually say this? It's a bit more complicated. Like we're not sure about what the Bible really says about a lot of things, because that's the thing about this thing. It's a book of books, right? It's written by different people of different times with different perspectives of God and how this religion should be. So of course it's not all going to flow together. Like it's like if you went to fanfiction.com and you went to every single fan fiction about the Avengers and you put them all together in a book, they're not all going to flow together in the same way. They're the same characters, but there's different interpretations. And that's really what the Bible is in a lot of respects. So, and
I guess we know what you do in your spare time.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah. Totally writing Avengers fan fiction.
There you go.
That's great use of my time. But hey, if that's your thing, then that's your thing. Don't make a religion off of it. I'll be all right with that. But hey, just a quick note. I want to remind folks about another way you can help support the show. One of that is by clicking that donate button that is on the channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, when you hit that donate button, that goes straight to the ACA, because the ACA is a nonprofit. So YouTube actually doesn't get a cut of that. So hit that donate button if you're feeling generous and want to help out. And also, I'll mention this as well. If you want to become a member and get those cool emoticons and stuff, you can hit the join button on the side there, and you get to have my face on there, some of the other hosts' faces, and the Truth Wanted logo. Thank you to everybody who is a member on this channel, and you guys are extra cool, and you can put your little emoticons in the chat now and show your cool awesomeness for everyone to see. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get to might be our last call tonight. We'll see. We're going to talk to John, who's calling in from Oklahoma. John, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
It's Jean, actually.
Jean, I'm so sorry, Jean. Welcome to the show.
It's fine. Actually, I'd like to say I really enjoy your work, Dan, and SkepTick. So hello to both of you.
Hello.
Cool. Well, what do you want to talk to us about?
Well, you have a survey up on your video asking if you think Shakespeare actually wrote Shakespeare.
Yes, we did. I'm so glad you responded to our survey today, because we had a very spirited debate about who was more important to the culture, William Shakespeare or Stephenie Meyer. And I won't say which side I landed on that debate, but that's a whole other conversation. So yeah, you want to respond.
Yeah, I think it's, well, you're both skeptics, right?
Right.
Allegedly, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should probably approach it in a skeptical way.
Yeah, okay. I'm down for that so far. What do you got?
So what would make us question whether or not Shakespeare actually wrote Shakespeare?
Man, it's a good question. I don't know. So full stop, I think Shakespeare wrote everything that he wrote. I guess yeah, I don't know. Like, you'd have to look for what would the signs be? It's a good question.
Yeah.
Like if there are people who are saying, hey, I actually wrote this, like if there are statements about that, if there are reviews talking about people who are mentioning other people that were involved in productions. I don't know. Like you can also talk about Shakespeare, the man himself. I think John was saying that you actually got to visit Shakespeare's house.
Yeah,
So,
I've been to his house, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he was a real person. There are crosses everywhere. Does that mean that? I mean, we could get into so many different things. But I don't know what would convince me that Shakespeare was one person or multiple people, but I'm of the stance that it doesn't really affect me. So if you've got some kind of evidence that would suggest that Shakespeare was multiple people, present it to me and see if that convinces me. I think that's the same with anything when it comes to skepticism. If you've got a positive position, then present that stuff and let's see if it convinces.
Right. I think the status quo is that Shakespeare is real. So you have to have evidence towards against the status quo. I think that's fair to say, right?
Right.
It was only first questioned by a woman named Delia Bacon in the United States about 150 years after Shakespeare died.
Only 150?
No one during his time. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. No one during his life ever questioned it. There are his contemporaries constantly mention how brilliant he is and the plays he wrote. His biggest friend and competitor, Ben Jonson, knew at the time that he couldn't, because he published all his own plays, Ben Jonson. He was a publishing fiend. And during that time when he's stealing other people's work, he knew he couldn't steal Shakespeare's work. He had to publish it under Shakespeare's name.
Okay. So, I'm guessing Shakespeare has like a correspondence with people too, right? Like, there's got to be letters. I don't know, maybe a diary or something. You could probably point to that too, right? I mean, you obviously have studied this, so I'm sure you know.
I have a terminal degree in theater, yes, and my wife has a PhD.
Oh, hell yeah!
There we go.
What's up? We're getting the best calls tonight, y'all. I'm loving this. We got people who are making apps and people who are like, yeah, I got a fucking theater degree, and this survey question is fucking bullshit. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
My wife did an entire dissertation on how it's a pretty stupid argument.
Really? Okay, so this woman comes up with this argument, and that's it? Like, has there been any good counter evidence to this at all?
No, the story around her is pretty messed up. They ended up putting her in a mental institution, which shouldn't that shouldn't be a factor in whether or not her argument is right.
Okay,
you know what I mean? But she only first questioned it about 150 years after. And then what you have, I hate to be that guy, especially having taught at universities myself, but people with PhDs, they have to publish, right? And they have to publish something new. They have to publish something different. So there's been they find anybody who was writing at that time and argue, no, he probably wrote it. Even though half these guys are dead by the time Shakespeare's really writing, or some of them are way too young for Shakespeare's early plays. Like Marlowe is one of those guys that's thrown out a lot. But we know he died early in Shakespeare's career, and he's one of the few people we have a documented written record on his death. Right? But people come up with these conspiracy theories that, he faked his death, and it was off writing in France.
Yeah, and we're not talking about like Tupac or John Lennon. Like, we're talking about Shakespeare. So I don't know. I feel like the stakes are different too. You know, like Tupac could still be there and like making music right now. Like Shakespeare's not coming back either way. So don't know about that. But that's so interesting.
They did a forensic analysis on his works that show a clear particular style that no one else at the time is matching. Right.
By the way, this analysis, sorry to interrupt you, but we were just talking about the letters of Paul. I just want to point out as well, when we're talking about the New Testament, half of the letters that are written in the New Testament are not actually from Paul. Like about half. Like this is the consensus of scholarship using these same techniques that you're talking about right now about the authenticity of William Shakespeare. So that's just a fun note. Now Romans, the one that talks about homosexuality,
only
is supposed to be a legitimate letter. But yeah, only 7 out of 14 are supposed to be legit, which, you know, I don't know what that says about your book.
It's a bad record,
but it's not great. So man, you're blowing my mind. I can't believe, of course it comes down to one person. When you always investigate like where these claims come from, it's always just like one dude that's like, hey, I don't think this is real, and I'm gonna write a book about it. And then people are like, hey man, you gotta check this out. Right?
This is blowing my mind, because before we started this, I was pretty certain that you just made up like Shakespeare could have been. I didn't realize this was an actual thing.
Oh yeah. You thought I was being funny. No, people do believe that. For sure. Yeah.
There's like a dozen candidates that people float as possible people who wrote it, right? Like the Earl of Oxford and Francis Bacon and all these different other people. But the reality is, if we approach it skeptically, contemporaries wrote about Shakespeare.
Yeah.
He's actually known to have helped write scenes for other playwrights. Like we can forensically analyze those scenes as well for other playwrights. And I mean, there are it's kind of a giant leap to argue Shakespeare didn't write anything when even during his time period, everybody knew about it. I mean, the Queen loved him. I mean, the Queen randomly loved an imaginary guy. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, but people do love imaginary guys, apparently. So
yeah, there is that. I mean, there's also people that say that history between like basically the Bible and Charlemagne didn't actually happen either. You heard about this where there's like an 800-year gap in time. So, you know, people will make arguments about history for pretty much anything. Like last week we were talking about a PhD that also believed the Nephilim built the pyramids. So, you know, like having a PhD doesn't always mean everything, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
But man, I'm so glad you called about this because like I always knew people like made that case, but I didn't know what the case was. Like I didn't know what arguments they were using to come up with that. I assumed it was bullshit, but I just didn't know. And now you're just telling me it's just assertions, really. Like nothing really hard.
Yeah, it's people trying to get their PhDs or be that special person that writes a different book. I hate to be that guy, but there is some of that in academia. And there's grabbing at straws for crazy theories.
Man, this show is really fun for me. We're talking.
I've
about
enjoyed
all the
this
good stuff. This is awesome. Thanks so much for calling and telling us the truth about William Shakespeare. You heard it. You heard it here, folks. All right, Shakespeare was real. I hope that wasn't too contentious for you guys, but that's the hard stance we're pulling here on Truth Wanted. We do think that Shakespeare was a real person,
and he was a short fella as well. When I went to his house, I'm a 6'2" fella. I know I'm not as tall as you, but his doorway was tiny. Really duck under there. So yeah,
I think they were all small back then, though.
Yeah,
right?
that's fair.
Kinda, I guess that's how the world works. But
hey,
hey,
we'd be the Nephilim. I felt comfortable in his house.
Oh, really?
Okay, there you go. Well, you hobbits can all go to your hobbit hole and live your best life. That's fine, you know. But giants like me, I'm fucking Gandalf, like ducking my head in there, just kind of figuring out how to work that out. But hey, thanks again so much for this call. That was a great call. I love the response. I love it when people respond to, for those of you who listen to just the audio form of the show, we do put a poll out at every live episode, just encouraging people to call in, but also to get people's thoughts. And today's was Do you think Shakespeare was real? And I just came up with that on a whim.
I honestly thought you were making it up. I really did.
That's the thing.
I had no idea
Man,
this was a thing.
John, you're gonna have such a good time in America, dude. You're gonna learn about all the fun things people believe. Obviously, that's not a strictly American phenomenon, but like, man, speaking of which, we're at the tail end of the show here, and I want to talk about something that happened this week real quick.
Okay.
Usually we talk about current events at the beginning of the show, but like this is just such a weird thing that I have to talk about it. John, I know the answer to this because we talked about it, but are you familiar with the Georgia Guidestones?
I am, well, slightly now because we had this conversation, but no. In essence, no.
So the Georgia Guidestones are this monument that doesn't exist anymore. We'll get to that. Was this monument that exists in Georgia, obviously, talking about what's the best way to put it? Prescriptions for the human race. Basically, they had certain ideas about what the authors of this text that's on this giant stone about what people should do. There's some text on there saying that people should only have up to like 500 million people on Earth. And there's some other like stuff on this stone. The thing about this monument is nobody actually really knows like when it got there and also who made it. Like it just kind of was there. I don't know the full history of the monument, but most people don't really know like why it's there. And there's lots of conspiracy theories that have always existed online about these stones because it kind of sounds like a crazy Illuminati, like this is our secret plan for the world, and we're going to put it out in a stone monument in Georgia for some reason. Like, I would not be surprised if like a local Freemason like lodge just decided to like put a construction project out there and just be done with it. Like that's my personal take. But regardless, it doesn't matter because some of the Georgia Guidestones got blown up this week, and some people are still, I think they're still figuring out who did it. But like there's a lot of Christian people that are celebrating because they assume that these stones were satanic in origin, and of course are part of the Illuminati and part of the the New World Order. And somehow this is a victory because they destroyed their publicly available stones for people to look at. So I saw some takes on Twitter of some Christian nationalist types that are like, this is a victory for Christianity against Satan. It's like, cool, now we're terrorists blowing up like cultural monuments. Is that what's happening now? Like, are we going to blow up other statues too? Like what's going on? So John, Georgia Guidestones, now you know a little bit more about it. Are you enjoying your new home country?
I love it here. Yeah, I absolutely love it here. And I can get away with so much just by being British. So yeah, I think just that in itself, I can, I can just say whatever I want and people don't mind because it's a British man saying it. And like we were saying earlier, that it just makes me sound like I'm smart. I'm not smart, but I will take that I do sound smart.
Yeah, the stones that are basically saying we need to limit our resources, and also there's like a lunar calendar aspect to it too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's like a weird thing on there where it counts the months or something based on the way that it's built. Yeah, it's really strange. I don't know why anybody would make it. It seems like a weird cult would make it or something.
Yeah.
Which is why I personally think like it's just some local Freemasons or something probably did.
I feel like them being destroyed though, it's almost like if Stonehenge was destroyed in the UK.
It's literally called, some people call it the Georgia Stonehenge. Like it is kind of this American Stonehenge thing. But yeah, Stonehenge at least has some date to it, like it's been around a bit. I don't know if these stones have been around for quite as long, but
and at least Stonehenge wasn't put there by like giant machinery,
whereas
this one
well John, there are some people that would disagree and would say
really?
Yeah. Oh, John, you want to talk about Stonehenge conspiracies?
Well, I mean, I used to live just down the road from Stonehenge. There were no tracks.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
There's some people that say Stonehenge is a Freemason thing. Now, of course, I think the scholarship or the current consensus is that it's like ancient Druidic in origin or whatever. But how the actual Stonehenge actually works too is still kind of up in the air. Whether it's supposed to be a kind of calendar or a ritual site, that's still debated. But some people say it's actually a magical portal that has. You're familiar with ley lines?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, there's magic ley lines across the earth that the closer you are to it, you're closer to the magic. And like Stonehenge is like the origin point for a lot of these ley lines. So so that's a fun thing.
There you go. And I remember ley lines in do you remember Lost, that great TV show?
So
Lost?
I never when Lost was on, I was too young for Lost when it was like on TV. But I'm kind of glad I didn't watch it because everybody says it's the most disappointing thing ever.
The
right?
ending's terrible.
Yeah.
But there's all this ley lines and there's a place called the Lighthouse which tells where all these magic spots are. Yeah, just reminded me of that. And just thanks for reminding me.
Oh, of course. I didn't have much to say on the Georgia Guidestones other than again, the weird online conspiracy stuff that I know about because I'm terminally online is once again merging with my reality and affecting things in the real world. I'm assuming because of meme magic or something. I don't know, but the internet is making things happen in real life, and it's very scary, and I don't like it.
Well, we can apparently talk to dead people through an app, which is,
yeah. And then we know what, John, at the end of the day, we can rest our hats in knowing that Shakespeare was fucking real. All right. And that is the epistemic foundation upon which I will build all of my beliefs on. And I'm fine with that, honestly.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. But with that out of the way, we are at the end of the show here. I want to give a big thanks to you, John, the Skeptic, for being on the show today. I had a great time with you.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Where can people find you at if they want to see more of you?
So I have a YouTube channel. It's the SkepTick. It's spelled T-I-C-K because I just wanted a funny way of saying it. And I put out videos every week where I sort of debunk and react to ridiculous things that I find ridiculous. And it's like an everyday person's guide to being a non-believer.
If it was just the Skeptic without like the little K in there, I would suggest you change the name because that is a little generic. But you got the little K going on. Yeah. So that's really cool. Definitely check out John's stuff. I've seen your stuff and it's cool. It's funny because this is the first time I'm seeing your face now. And in your videos, you are just a floating circle, which is just really funny. But anyway, folks, thanks again for watching this show. I just want to remind you guys that this show is a part of the atheist community of Austin and part of the AEN Podcast Network. So if you want to watch some of the other shows that are part of this network, we do have a dedicated YouTube channel for that. It's tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. So check that out there. Please like and subscribe and comment. I do read the comments. I don't always comment on YouTube, and I definitely read all the emails that come into the show. If you want to email me or any of the other hosts of the show, it's truth@atheist-community.org. And I'd love to get your feedback there. And I'm also on Twitter @ObjectivelyDan. I think about quitting Twitter more and more, though. I think Twitter is not good for my mental health.
Anybody's mental health.
For the people around me also. But I'm still there right now. So if you want to follow me on there, please do that. And last but not least, I have to thank the wonderful, fantastic, amazing, stupendous crew that helped make this show happen every single week. We're going to switch to the crew cam here. And there is the crew. Jason always rocking the Truth Wanted swag. I mean, he's a true fan. He's a true fan. We love you, Jason. We love all the crew that helped make this show happen. Thanks again to everybody who helps make Truth Wanted a thing, including you, the viewer. Thank you guys so much for watching. John, any words of wisdom before we close out today's show?
Question everything. If you hear something that doesn't quite sound right, ask questions. That's how you get anywhere in life. Ask the right questions.
I like that. Ask questions. Is William Shakespeare real or not? That's where you should start. That was Rene Descartes' actual foundation, believe it or not. It wasn't, I think, therefore I am. It was, well, I know Shakespeare's real. So that's how we kind of start things. Anyway, I've taken that joke way too far. I'm going to close this out now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching the show. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.
Watch The Non-Prophets and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central, between The Atheist Experience and Talk Hidden. Visit tiny.cc/ytnp.